Hello dear students and welcome to Civil Star. So guys, as we promised you that after the exam, UPSC CSAT exam, will be there to share the answer key with you, and we have already completed the answer key yesterday itself. Yesterday there was a session for reasoning and English, reasoning and quants, and today this session is for the answer key of English for the UPSC paper. So guys, if I'm audible, if I'm visible to everyone, just type yes in the chat box and then we'll begin with the answer key, guys. Yes guys, so just let me know if I'm audible and if I'm visible to everyone, and also tell me how was your experience, how was the exam, how did it go? I mean, you did well, मुश्किल था, आसान था, moderate था. मैं इंग्लिश के बारे में पूछ रहा हूँ. इंग्लिश का सेक्शन कैसा लगा? As we discussed a day before the exam, I think I remember I told you that there would be around 25 to 30 questions, right? So there were 25 questions, I think, yes. So there were 25 good questions and there were many passages for the same. So you had to read the passage and you had to answer the question. But the best part is there were very few level 3 passages there. Most of the passages were level 1, some of them were level 2, but there wasn't any level 3 passages. So okay, let's see. All right. English part went well. Time consuming. CSAT me. Yes, that's happening. So alright guys, very well done, and I again wish you all the very best. Just keep the fingers crossed and hope for a hopeful for a fruitful result out of it. So guys, let's discuss the answer key of all the passages, question answer for all the passages that were given to you in the exam. Okay. All right. Good morning, everyone. And 15 correct हुए, 15 incorrect, 10 correct हो गए. Improvement chance तो next year है यार. तो अभी this year तो I think. But if you've done well in reasoning and quants, I think you should be able to score 66 marks. But if unluckily if that doesn't happen, then this is not the end, guys. There is another year, another opportunity waiting for you very soon. So start preparing for that and we can work on that aspect as well. So guys, let's discuss the answer key of all the passages that were given to you in the exam, right? So let's begin, guys. So now this is a copy, so it's not very clear, but I think it's doable. It will do the part, okay? So let's start with passage number 1. Guys, passage number 1, this was based on the labor, the movement of labor, right? They started the passage that over the last decade or so, labor has been departing agriculture sector, but it has only been going to construction and unregistered manufacturing, right? Which are not marked by better jobs. Services. Now, this was the important part, guys. जहाँ से आपको आपका आंसर मिलना था. So guys, ये जो उसने दिया है, services where labor tends to be most productive are not generating the additional jobs the country needs. So this is the deciding sentence in this passage. So please read it carefully. Services where labor tends to be most productive are not generating the additional jobs the country needs. India will need 24 million or so jobs over the next decade. The new sector, e-commerce, can at best close only half the jobs gap. Only those sectors that drive domestic demand, such as health and education, can comfortably fill the other half. So basically they're talking about the problem of unemployment and irregular movement of labor from agriculture sector into construction sector, but not getting into a sector which will provide good earning or good salary to the laborers. Now guys, the question based on this passage was, the question was, which one of the following is the best implied in the passage? So we had to find the logical implication. The first option was strong measures need to be taken to reduce the rural to urban migration of labor. Now, rural to urban migration, guys, this has not specifically been mentioned, and now there is no way that some measures need to be taken. Okay, the working condition in construction and unregistered manufacturing needs to be improved. Third option was service sector has been reducing the problem of unemployment. This was contradictory because it is given in the passage the service sector is not doing enough, and increased social sector spending is imperative for large scale job creation. So guys, the correct answer for this passage was option number D. So guys, you can if you have your papers with you, you can check and cross check with the paper itself that what answer you have marked and what should be the right answer. Now, as we've learned, there is an elimination method that I've taught you. Now, this statement was contradictory as what was given in the passage, because I've marked it underlined, service sector has not done enough. So this is contradictory. Now, working condition in construction and unregistered manufacturing needs to be improved. Now, they're not talking about working condition, they're talking about bridging the gap of unemployment in the country. So we can also eliminate that. Now, there was, as I told you, there was no mention of any measures taken or any rural to urban migration of the labor. It was migration from agriculture to the construction sector. But the logical implication was increased social sector spending is imperative for large scale job creation. Why? Because social sector spending is basically how can we generate more jobs. That the best implication is how can we generate more jobs by spending more into health, education and service sector, so that whatever labor comes out of agriculture sector, they should be employed in some well organized sector. It should not just switch from agriculture to construction or other unregistered sectors, or what we call as uncharted sectors of the economy. So the correct option was increased social sector spending is imperative for large scale job creation. Okay, that was passage number 1. Okay guys, so please keep on matching your answers so that we can discuss it later on if you have any queries or if you have any doubts. Now coming to passage number 2. This is given on my left. Now this passage was about right to privacy and the role of state, that means the role of government into helping to sovereignty, helping the sovereignty of an individual. Private sectors, they tend to they do not follow the Privacy Act or right to privacy, but state should interfere and they should also play a good role in this. So guys, the passage was something like this. Let's quickly read it. In India, the current focus on the right to privacy is based on some new realities of the digital age. A right is a substantive right only if it works in all situations and for everyone. A right to free expression for an individual about her exploitation, for instance, is meaningless without actual availability of security that guarantees that private force cannot be used to thwart this right. So they're talking about private force or any other medium, so that this right cannot be thwarted by any authority whatsoever. Now the role of the state therefore is, now this is the important line, this is the deciding line guys, that's what you need to mark here. The role of the state they are referring to the government, therefore is not just to abstain from preventing rightful free expression, but also to actively ensure that private parties are not able to block it. Now this was the important deciding sentence for your answer, right? So guys, now the question was, on the basis of the passage, the following assumptions have been made. Number 1, state should have some institutions to ensure its appropriate role in a digital society. Second was, state should ensure that private parties do not violate the citizens' right to privacy, which is also given in this line. And digital economy is not compatible with the idea of not violating the citizens' privacy. Now that was just a food for thought. It was a question that if a private firm or private company wants to violate the right of privacy, they can do it. But this this goes to the extreme that digital economy is not compatible with the idea of not violating citizens' privacy. ये कहीं पे भी नहीं दिया है इसमें. So the correct options were option number 1 and option number 2. Third was invalid. So the correct answer was option number A. So that's for passage number 2. The correct option was option number A, 1 and 2 both. Got it, guys? Alright, very good. So keep on cross-checking your answers with this so that you'll be able to clearly understand that this is the score that we are going to carry, or this is the score we are going to get out of this exam. Okay? Alright, guys, moving on. Now, coming to the third passage, small passage but important one. So let's read it and let's see what would be the answer here. Now, this passage was about the presence of water in wetlands of the country, rivers, and treating water as a resource, not as a medium to just supply water. So the passage was one of the biggest ironies around water is that it comes from rivers and other wetlands, yet it is seen as divorced from them. So it is not understood that water that comes from river or other wetlands, but they do not, in the minds of people, they are not synced together. While water is used as a resource, public policy does not always grasp that it is a part of the natural ecosystem. So this was the important sentence here. Guys, while water is used as a resource, public policy does not always grasp that it is a part of the natural ecosystem, right? So basically water is considered as a resource for people, but they do not understand that this is a very important, very crucial part of a natural habitat of the planet, of the country, of any place. Efforts at engineering water systems are thus efforts at augmenting water supply rather than strengthening the capacities of ecological systems. So basically, whatever efforts are being made to engineer water systems, they are basically solely based on supplying the water to people. But they should be strengthening the capacities of ecological systems, because if water level, water capacity changes, everything changes around that place. So they should probably, the passage wants to imply, the author wants to imply that water should not be considered as a resource for people, it should be considered as an integral part of the ecosystem around us. So that is the important part of the passage. Now guys, the question that was given on this passage was this. Now, which one of the following is the most logical and rational inference that can be made from the passage? Now the options were rivers and other wetlands should be protected under Ramsar Convention. Now I think Ramsar Convention was nowhere mentioned in the passage, so I think we can eliminate that, right? Now engineering water systems should be modernized and further augmented. Wetlands need to be reinforced as more than just open sources of water. And fourth was water supply should not be free of cost so as to be able to prevent its misuse or overuse. So this is nowhere mentioned in the passage. Now engineering water systems should be modernized and further augmented. Now that would beat the point. The point was whatever efforts are being made to modernize and engineer the water supply system, what author wants to say is we should strengthen the rivers and wetlands of the country so that the ecosystems can be strengthened. So the correct option was wetlands needs to be reinforced more than just open sources of water. So the correct option was option number C. Correct, guys? So the correct option was option number C. Alright. Now, coming to passage number 4. Now, this was about asset allocation. How wisely you should invest. You should not just keep the money sitting idle in your bank or idle at your home. You should invest it. So that was the critical part of this passage, of this particular passage. Now, let's read it. Asset allocation is the most important investment decision we will ever make. And sadly, most of us do not give that decision the importance it deserves. We are adamant about seeking predictability with our future. Now, we tend we tend to think of investing in risky assets as extremely volatile and value eroding. We also dislike fluctuating returns and the loss of control of investment. We think our money is best left idle, unproductive but safe, right? Now this was the important part, this was the important sentence here, guys. We think our money is best left idle, unproductive but safe. There is no asset that is risk-free. We could lose our jobs, our homes can lose value, our banks can go bankrupt, our bonds can default, the government can collapse, and the companies we choose fondly may cease to exist. But we cannot live life assuming that all these extreme events are waiting to happen and all at the same time. Now all these extreme forms of risk we know will not manifest at the same time. So basically that's what he's saying, that you should, what people generally tend to do, they tend to keep the money idle so that they can be in control of their money rather than investing in something wise or something useful. So what he's saying, that if people tend to do that, so no asset is risk free, everything can change within a blink of an eye, right? So he's trying to profess that asset management is very, very important. So the question was, which one of the following statements best implies the suggestion given by the author of the passage? Now your options were: distribute your wealth across different kinds of assets so that your risks would be minimized. Second was, risk-taking behavior should be a necessary component of your personality if you want to generate wealth. C, while making investments, find a trustworthy asset management organization which would manage your wealth for you, or you should know that investing your money is a risky business. Now, guys, the correct answer for this was, basically, what he's trying to say, risk-taking behavior should be a necessary component of your personality. I think we can say that that's nowhere mentioned, it's not talking about risk-taking behavior. Neither should be this. You should know that investing your money is a risky business. No. What he's saying is that clearly he wants to say, now first sentence, asset allocation is the most important investment decision we will ever make, and sadly most of us do not give that decision the importance it deserves. So basically this was the key of the passage. So distribute your wealth across different kinds of assets so that your risk would be minimized, or while making investments, find a trustworthy asset management organization which would manage your wealth for you. I think the whole idea was basically all these risks cannot happen, all these, whatever he's talking about in the passage, all these scenarios cannot happen at once. So if you distribute your wealth into sensible, logical assets, your risk would be minimized. So the correct option, the suggestion author wants to put forward is this. So the correct option was option number A. Got it? Very well done, guys. Now, moving on. Now, there is passage number 5 for you, and it was an interesting, there was another passage which I remember a couple of years back in the CSAT paper. It's based on the same topic, genetically modified crops. So the passage was about genetically modified crops and how to deal with the whole comprehensive problem of the system. So let's go through it. Although most of the genetically modified crops cultivated now are genetically engineered for a single trait. Now these days they are they're modified for a single trait. In future, crops genetically engineered for more than one trait will be the norm. These days one crop is modified for one particular trait, that there should be should give more output, or it should be resistant to pesticides or insecticides. So that's one trait. But in future, the crops will be modified based on different traits of the whole idea. Thus biotechnology's role in agriculture and the regulation of the same cannot be. Now this is an important sentence, guys, which needed to be kept in mind. Thus biotechnology's role in agriculture and the regulation of the same cannot be understood solely in the context of the current generation of GM crops. Instead, there is a need to take comprehensive look, taking into account various aspects including socio-economic impacts, so that the potential of the technology can be harnessed while minimizing negative impacts. So this was the main part of the passage, the whole idea of the passage. Given the importance of biotechnology in developing varieties that can help in climate change mitigation. Now this was also important. Importance of biotechnology in developing varieties that can help in climate change mitigation and adaptation. Not using biotechnology as a part of the climate change action plan cannot be an option. So it should be comprehensively thought about. There should be no negative impacts. It should help in climate change mitigation and adaptation, and we cannot think of any other strategy without keeping climate change not an option. So climate change is a very important factor for the crops. Domestic regulation of biotechnology cannot be viewed in isolation of trade policy and obligations under various international treaties and conventions, right? So there is the question. There were, I think, 2 questions based on this passage. Now, question number 5. With reference to the above passage, the following assumptions have been made. They had made 4 assumptions and they wanted to see that which out of them or how many out of them are correct assumptions. So we have to find the correct assumptions. Let's read the options, guys. Biotechnology regulation is an evolving process. Now, biotechnology regulation is an evolving process. Participation of people is needed in policy decisions regarding biotechnology. Now, I think we did not talk about any of the regulation, participation of people in any of the regulation. So I think we can eliminate option number 2. So by eliminating option number 2, guys, if you're sensible enough, right, let's read the other options, but I'll tell you another very easy, very good trick to solve it again. Now, biotechnology regulation should take into account socio-economic aspects in decision making. That is true. Wider involvement of political executive in biotechnology regulation improves its effectiveness in dealing with the country's trade policies and international obligations. Now, this sounded like the correct option, right? So, it was basically, now, guys, if we understand that option number 2 is wrong, it is nowhere in context of the passage. Now I can see option A has option 2 in it, option C has 2 in it, option D has 2 in it. So the correct option left was, guys, option number B, right? So you can eliminate your options sensibly, right? If I can see that option number 2 is not correct, whichever options have option number 2 in them will be eliminated. So A, C and D, all 3 had option number 2. So I was only left with 1 and 3, which are actually the correct options here. Okay, and there was another question, I think, based on this. Question number 6, yes. Which of the following statements best implies the crux of the passage, the gist of the passage? So the options were: precautionary principle is not given importance in current debate on developing GM crops. Biotechnology is not currently used in climate change mitigation and adaptation mechanisms. Biotechnology's role is not confined to the current priorities of developing GM crops, and the negative impacts of biotechnology are not properly understood. Yes, guys, what would be the correct answer? The correct answer is the negative impacts of biotechnology are not properly understood. So, guys, the correct option was the negative impacts of biotechnology are not properly understood. They may have to think about all the socio-economic factors and other. So the crux of the passage was this: precautionary principle is not given importance. That's not true. Biotechnology is not currently used in climate change mitigation. That is not nowhere given in the passage. They have said biotechnology is used for only focusing on one trait. It could be any of them, right? Biotechnology's role is not confined to the current priorities of developing GM crops. That's also contradictory. So the correct option was option number D. Okay. So this was your option. Question number 6. Sir, according to exam race, it's incorrect. No. I'm telling you why it's not. See, biotechnology's role is not confined to the current priorities of developing GM crops. Now, it is not confined to. Now, biotechnology's role is not confined to current priorities of developing GM crops. It is not confined to that. It is confined to much more to it. But whenever we have to eliminate an option, guys, now if you read the passage carefully, now although most of the most of the genetically modified crops cultivated now are genetically engineered for a single trait. In future, crops genetically engineered for more than one trait will be the norm. So biotechnology's role in agriculture and regulation of the same cannot be understood solely in the context of the current generation of GM crops. Instead, there is a need to take a comprehensive look, taking into account various aspects, including socio-economic impacts. Now, so that the potential of the technology can be harnessed while minimizing negative impacts. This is where the answer was hidden. So, the regulation of biotechnology, they're talking about, guys, please read carefully. What they're saying is the biotechnology's role in agriculture and the regulation of the same cannot be understood solely in the context of the current generation of GM crops. Instead, there is a need to take a comprehensive look, taking into account various aspects, including socio-economic impacts, so that the potential of the technology can be harnessed while minimizing negative impacts, which are not basically properly being understood right now. There are socio-economic factors for it, behind it. So, biotechnology's role is not confined to the current priorities of developing GM crops. That is the main crux of the passage. Or the negative impacts of biotechnology are not properly understood as of now. So they have to be regulated, keeping in mind the negative impacts as well as the harnessing power of every crop. So that's why the correct option was option number D, guys. Okay. So the correct option here was option number D. Okay. Okay, we'll discuss it again. Let's finish off the paper, and then whichever confusing part you felt, we can discuss it again. Okay. Alright, guys. So that was the first batch of comprehensions. Then coming to the second batch of comprehensions. Now, guys, this is question number 21. Question number 21. Now, coming to this passage, guys, private investment in general is volatile. Now, it was about private investment into something. So, private investment in general is volatile. Foreign private investment is more volatile because the available investment avenues are significantly greater. That is around the world. So, they're talking about the ill effects of foreign direct investment. Therefore, the responsibility of providing employment cannot be left to foreign direct investment. The current FDI inflows are volatile over time and across sectors and regions, which is a necessary consequence of their research for the highest returns. The adverse consequences are unstable unemployment. Now this was the important part in this passage. The adverse consequences are unstable employment and an accentuation of income and regional inequalities. A probable positive consequence of foreign investment is the inflow of new technology and its subsequent diffusion. However, the technology diffusion is not at all certain because the existing state of physical and human capital in India may prove inadequate for the diffusion. So they're talking about the some factors that are affecting why FDI cannot be trusted, right? Why we cannot depend on foreign direct investment for the reasons. Because the current FDI are volatile, FDI inflows are volatile over time and across sectors and regions, which is a necessary consequence of the search for the highest return. And the adverse consequences are unstable employment and accentuation of income and regional inequalities. Got it? Now, guys, let's read the options now. The assumptions have been made. Relying on foreign investment in the long run is not an economically sound policy. So relying on foreign investment in the long run is not an economically sound policy. Second was policies must be undertaken to reduce volatility in foreign private investment. Option number 3, policies must be undertaken to strengthen the domestic private investment. Question number 4, public investment should be given priority over private investment, and substantial public investment in education and health should be undertaken. So guys, what was the correct options? What were the correct options here? Now, Option number 1, relying on foreign investment in the long run is not an economically sound policy. That's absolutely correct, because that's what the passage implies, right? Now, coming to option number 2, policies must be undertaken to reduce volatility in foreign private investment. Now, option number 3, policies must be undertaken to strengthen the domestic private investment. Option number 4, public investment should be given priority over private investment. And last, substantial public investment in education and health should be undertaken. So health and education, it was not specifically mentioned anywhere. So I think we can eliminate option number 5, guys, and by learning the elimination trick. Now option number 5 was given in option number C, option number B. Now we are left with only option 3, policies must be undertaken to strengthen domestic private investment, or option number A, option number 1, 2 and 4. I think the correct option was, first was correct, so I can see, I can also eliminate option number D. So the correct option was option number 1, option number 2 and option number 4. So that was the correct answer for it. Chal, very good guys. Now, moving on to the second passage, to harness the highly skewed seasonal spread distribution of monsoon flows. Yes, so this was about dependence of Indian agriculture and India on monsoon period. So many opportunities to harness the highly skewed seasonal and spatial distribution of monsoon flows, which occur in a 4-month period from June to September annually, have been lost. Now this was an important part, guys. Many opportunities to harness the highly skewed seasonal and spatial distribution of monsoon flows, which occur in a 4-month period from June to September annually, have been lost. So many opportunities have been to harness the water has been lost. Since these few months account for most of the rainfall and consequent freshwater availability, the need for holding rainwater in reservoirs for subsequently releasing it for use over the year is a necessity nobody can afford to overlook. Now, climate change will continue to affect weather conditions and create water shortages and excesses. Now, this was also important. Climate change will continue to affect weather conditions and create water shortages and excesses. ज़्यादा भी होगा और कम भी होंगे. While millions suffer from droughts and floods, waters in the countries, many rivers flow unutilized and are discharged into the sea every year. So basically they're talking about the importance of tapping the potential of these 4 months where monsoon provides fresh water to the country. So what was the most rational and practical implications for India, right? So which of the following could be the most rational and practical implications for India? Now let's read the options, guys. Interlinking of rivers should be undertaken. That's how you can save water. A network of dams and canals should be built across the country for proper distribution of water. Farmers should be provided easy loans for digging bore wells. Usage of water for agriculture should be regulated by law, or distribution of river water among regions should be regulated by the government. So guys, yes. So I think farmers, I think this option I can easily eliminate. Reason being, this is nowhere talked about in the passage, that farmers should be provided easy loans for digging bore wells. So whichever option I had, option number 3, I could eliminate that straight away. So option C and D, they got eliminated. You're only left with option number A and B. Right guys? So this is question number 22. Yes guys, the correct option for this was 1, 2, 4 and 5 out of this. Should be regulated by law. I think this is nowhere talked about in the passage as well. I can eliminate this also. And if I eliminate option number 4, that means option number 2 is also eliminated. The correct option is option number 1 and 2. Interlinking of rivers should be undertaken and a network of dams and canals should be built across the country for proper distribution of water. So that was the correct choice here. Out of the rest of the options, the correct option was option number 1 and 2. So the correct answer was option number A for this passage. Question number 22. Now guys, moving on. Yes, this was about investment in education and the benefits to be reaped out of it. People will invest in education whenever they are granted the economic freedom to fully enjoy its benefits. Again, this is for the obvious reason that the return on education increases as the level of economic freedom rises. Okay? When people, thanks to lower tax rates, are allowed to retain most of the higher income that they gain from each incremental level of education, it makes eminent sense to invest in education. तो उसने कितनी लॉजिकल बात की है कि देखो अगर टैक्स रेट्स कम हैं तो अगर जितना 10th क्लास पास जो बच्चा है या 12th पास जो बच्चा जितना वो कमाता है किसी भी जॉब से कमाएगा, कंपैरेटिवली जो ग्रेजुएट है या पोस्ट ग्रेजुएट है या जो डॉक्टरेट है वो किसी भी जॉब में कमाएगा, द डिफरेंस इन सैलरीज वुड बी ह्यूज. तो इसीलिए लोगों को क्या लगता है कि जितना हम पढ़ाई में इन्वेस्ट करेंगे, ठीक है, सालों सालों तक इन्वेस्ट करते रहेंगे, डॉक्टरेट ग्रेजुएशन पोस्ट ग्रेजुएशन करेंगे तो उतनी ही हमारी रिटर्न्स भी ज्यादा होंगे. एजुकेशन कम होगी तो रिटर्न्स भी कम होंगे. दैट्स व्हाट दे आर टॉकिंग अबाउट. नाउ ऑन द other hand, when the government decides to tax the higher income of educated individuals even higher rate, it makes very little sense to invest in educating oneself further. उसने कॉन्ट्राडिक्टरी पार्ट भी दिया कि लेकिन अगर गवर्नमेंट वही हायर सैलरीज वालों को जिन्होंने अच्छी पढ़ाई करके अच्छी सैलरी ली है उन्हीं पे ज्यादा अगर टैक्स लगाएंगे तो फिर लोगों का सोचना क्या हो गया, फिर पढ़ के फायदा क्या है, हमें ही टैक्स देना है सारा. तो ठीक है, दैट इज ऑल्सो अ कॉन्सिक्वेंस टू दैट. Now, the same incentives apply to parents who decide on whether to invest in their children's education. तो फिर वो माँ बाप पे भी अप्लाई करते हैं कि बच्चों को कितना पढ़ाए हम, पढ़ा के उन्होंने एट द एंड ऑफ द डे वो सारा पैसा कमा के टैक्स में दे देना है. तो दैट इज ऑल्सो फूड फॉर थॉट. Now, coming to the question, with reference to the above passage, the following assumptions have been made. Now, let's read the assumptions, guys. Now, lower tax rates in a country invariably leads to greater investments in higher education. Investment in the education of children ensures their economic freedom. Third was economic freedom has a positive impact on building up the human capital. Yes, guys. So I think all three of these options, now all of the options are correctly mentioned. Lower tax rates, that has been mentioned, that if the lower tax rate will obviously it will translate into greater investments in higher education. Investment in the education of children ensures their economic freedom. Obviously, बच्चों में अगर इन्वेस्ट करोगे पैसे बच्चों की पढ़ाई में तो उनको इकोनॉमिक फ्रीडम मिलेगा क्योंकि उनसे ही सैलरी बनेगी. That's also correct. And economic freedom has a positive impact on building up human capital. That's also true. So the correct option was, guys, option number D. Very good, guys. So the correct option was option number D. All three options were correct there. Chalo guys, moving ahead. Passage number 4. Our urban bodies cannot possibly ensure sustainable delivery of water in our cities unless financing mechanisms are put in place. Water delivery requires heavy investment in collecting it from a natural source, treating it to make it potable, and laying a distribution network of pipes for delivery to the users. It also requires investments in sewage infrastructure and sewage treatment plants so that the sewers can carry the wastewater to these plants to ensure that no untreated sewage is discharged back into the natural water bodies. If our cities were rich enough to meet the entire cost, water could be delivered free, but they are not. So basically our cities are not rich enough to build up all the infrastructure. If that was the case, they would probably get free water. But why are we charged for the water? Because all this system requires a lot of infrastructure and management and everything. That's what he has mentioned in the passage. Now, what is the most logical and crucial message conveyed by the passage? Now, let's read the options, guys. Urban local bodies must recover costs through user charges. Urban local bodies are not efficient enough to meet the water requirements of our cities. Water shortage in our cities is a perennial problem that cannot be solved. Okay? Now, this extreme में चले गए हैं. And in view of the water crisis in our cities, there is an urgent need to limit the population of cities by adopting an upper limit of population size. Now guys, the logical message that has been given that urban local bodies must recover cost through user charges because the cities are not rich enough to sustain all that infrastructure and everything. So the municipalities, the government has to invest initially into it, and then what they do is they take that money from the user itself, because the cities are not rich enough all the time. So the logical message is, we cannot say that we can limit the population size, right? This is also wrong. Water shortage in our cities is a perennial problem that cannot be solved. We can eliminate that, right? So that can be eliminated, this can be eliminated, right? Now, out of A and B, not efficient enough, that's nowhere given. They are doing a good job, but they have to charge. So the correct option was, guys, option number A. So for question number 24, the correct option was option number A. Now guys, moving on. There was another question on this passage. With reference to the above passage, the following assumptions have been made. Rich cities only can ensure sustainable delivery of water. Sustainable delivery of water in cities means much more than supplying water to households. So guys, I think this is illogical, because they have taken it to the extreme that only rich cities can ensure sustainable delivery of water. That's not true, right? Our cities are not rich, but we are able to provide water to you, but it is not free, it is charged. But this is the correct option here. Sustainable delivery of water in cities means much more than supplying water to the households. So the correct option was option number B. Got it, guys? So for question number 25, the correct option was option number B. Alright guys, moving ahead. Last passage for this batch. Now in India, agriculture still engages about half of its workforce, and about 85% of its farms are small and marginal compared to China and Vietnam, which have experienced fast structural and rural transformation. India's story is of slow transformation. As a result, poverty reduction in India was at much slower pace during the 1988 to 2014 compared to China and Vietnam. Now, India's poverty reduction was slow during 1988 to 2005, but during 2005 to 2012, it accelerated dramatically, almost 3 times faster than during the entire earlier period. What did India do during this period? Research reveals that the relative price scenario changed. This was the important sentence in the passage, guys. What happened? Research reveals that the relative price scenario changed significantly by more than 50% in favor of agriculture in the wake of rising global prices. What he is saying is, जैसे जैसे दुनिया में दूसरे देशों में फसलों की कीमतें बढ़ी, उसी वजह से ही इंडिया में भी उनकी कीमतें बढ़ गई. So that was a very important factor. This boosted private investments in agriculture by more than 50%, and as a result, agri GDP growth touched 4.1% during 2007 to 2012 as against 2.4% during 2002 to 2007. The net surplus of agri trade touched $25 billion in 2013 to 2014. Real farm wages rose by 7% per annum. All this led to unprecedented fall in poverty. So basically what he's saying is that what happened during this period, the global prices rose, and due to that private investment came into the sector, and there was a lot of improvement and gain in the economy and the income generation. So now there was a question for this. With reference to the passage, the following assumptions were given to you. Now, structural and rural transformation is impossible when farms are mainly small and marginal, right? Extreme, taking it to extreme again, right? So guys, extreme वाले options मैंने हमेशा आपको सिखाया है, जब भी वो extreme में ले जाता है, उस option को हमेशा हम eliminate करते हैं. A good price incentive can trigger investments in agriculture. India needs to build value chains for high value agri products like livestock and horticulture. Or higher global prices of agriculture commodities are essential for India's poverty reduction. Now guys, I can eliminate option number 1. So A can be eliminated. Now, out of 2, 3 and 4, 2 is correct. So 2 is given in B and C. So I can eliminate option number D as well. So I was left with B and C. Now, which was the correct answer? 2 and 4 or 2 and 3? India needs to build value chains for high value agri products like livestock and horticulture, or higher global prices of agriculture commodities are essential for India's poverty reduction. Now guys, why I eliminated option number 3 in this? Because livestock horticulture has nowhere been mentioned, and nowhere it has been discussed about high value agri products. But this has been said in the passage that higher global prices of agricultural commodities are essential for India's poverty reduction. That has been mentioned because the point was, in all that span of time, the economy, the agricultural economy was not able to grow. But during that very small period from 2005 to 2014 or 2002 to 2014, in that span it took off because of the main push which was given by the global rise in prices. So I think the correct option was option number B. Option number 2 and 4. Get it, guys? Very good. So cities should be rich enough. That is not the assumption, Aditya. Point is, he was giving you a जैसे हम बोलते हैं ना, telling it's way of saying the same thing. You know, cynical way of saying the same thing. जैसे हम बोलते हैं यार, अगर पढ़ोगे नहीं तो अमीर नहीं बनोगे, और अगर तुम अमीर हो तो इसका मतलब तुम पढ़े लिखे हो. समझ रहे हो? तो ये कॉज एंड इफेक्ट वाली बात आ जाती है. उसने पूरे पैसेज में क्या बोला? हमारी ग्रोथ, द करेक्ट, आई थिंक द लॉजिकल message given by the passage is inclusive growth. Agricultural growth is key to reduce poverty in the near future. Right? So it should be, agriculture should be paid more attention. That was the whole point of the passage. Okay. Alright, guys. Now, coming to the next batch of comprehensions. This was question number 41. Now, let's try to figure these passages out. Spanish ships in the late 16th century first brought the potato tuber from South America. Yeah, this was about bringing new species into a country and what effects they can have on the in the local area. That was the passage about Spanish ships in the late 16th century first brought the potato tuber from South America to Europe, whereby in the early 19th century it had become a reliable backup to cereal crops, particularly in the cold rain-soaked soils of Ireland. The Irish were soon almost wholly dependent on the potato as their staple food, and they were planting primarily one prodigious variety, the lumper potato, okay, whose genetic frailty would be cruelly exposed by the fungus Phytophthora infestans. In 1845, the spores of the deadly fungus began spreading across the country, destroying nearly all the lumpers in its path. The resulting famine killed or displaced millions. So this was a study kind of passage. It was observed that if a new new food or new crop is brought into a country, it may not always be very beneficial. So let's read the options, guys. Which is the best reflected message of the passage? So for introducing any foreign plant into a country, the soil and climate conditions of the country should be suitable. As a staple food of a country, tuber crops like potato cannot replace cereal crops. Some of the fungal infections of plants cannot be prevented or stopped from spreading across large areas. Relying on a homogeneous food source is not desirable. Yes, guys. So I think the correct option, this is absolutely contradictory. Relying on a homogeneous food source is not desirable. This study shows it is desirable, because if you bring in some new crop, it may have adverse effects. So it may, create this situation. The resulting famine killed or displaced millions. So just because of over dependence on a foreign crop, they had to face this problem. So we can eliminate option number D. As a staple food of a country, tuber crops like potato cannot replace cereal crops. This is not the message the passage is trying to convey. Some of the fungal infections of plants cannot be prevented or stopped from spreading across large areas. For introducing any foreign plant into a country, the soil and climate conditions of the country should be suitable. I think that is the logical answer. I think option number A is the correct answer here, because that is the logical message the passage wants to convey. Okay? Array. Yes. So the correct answer is D. Relying on a homogeneous food source is not desirable. ये आंसर कैसे हो गया यार? relying on a homogeneous food source is not homogeneous. क्या होता है? Yes guys, read 6 line. तो ये तो अरे यार ये तो कह रहे हो कि स्पेनिश शिप्स पहली बार यूरोप में 16th सेंचुरी में पोटैटो लेके आए और 19th सेंचुरी तक वो एक बहुत ही इट हैड बिकम अ रिलायबल बैकअप. देखना ये क्या कहना चाह रहा है वो. इट हैड बिकम अ रिलायबल बैकअप टू सीरियल क्रॉप्स. ठीक है. Now, particularly in the cold rain-soaked soils of Ireland, the Irish were soon almost wholly dependent on the potato as their staple food. So they became dependent on a food or a crop which was brought from abroad, right? Brought from South America. Now, and they were planting primarily one prodigious variety, the lumper potato, whose genetic frailty would be cruelly exposed by the fungus Phytophthora infestans. Now, in 1845, spores of the deadly fungus began spreading across the country, destroying nearly all the lumpers in its path. तो पूरी crop खत्म हो गई, and the resulting famine killed or displaced millions. समझ रहे हो? तो वो क्या कहना चाह रहा है कि भाई अगर किसी फॉरेन प्लांट को एक कंट्री में लाना है तो सॉइल और क्लाइमेट उस कंट्री का उससे सुटेबल होना चाहिए. Relying on a homogeneous food source is not desirable. कि मतलब जो घर में उगाई जाती है जो चीजें, ठीक है, they were dependent on the homogeneous food. So this is not reliable. Homogeneous food क्या होता है यार? क्या कहना चाह रहा है कि जो आप, ठीक है, जो आप अपने staple food बना लिया, ठीक है, उसको homogeneous food. So relying on a homogeneous food source is not desirable. ठीक है. अब ये क्या बात कर रहा है? उन्होंने क्या किया? देखो क्या कह रहे हैं कि पहली बार 16th सेंचुरी में पोटैटो साउथ अमेरिका से यूरोप में आया और ड्यू टू उसकी जो मतलब अवेलेबिलिटी थी और उसकी ग्रोथ जो थी उसको देखते हुए लोगों ने क्या किया, बाकी जो स्टेपल क्रॉप्स थी उनको नजरअंदाज कर दिया और पोटैटो को अपनी स्टेपल क्रॉप बना लिया. समझ रहे हो? लेकिन हुआ क्या, धीरे धीरे तो आयरलैंड की उसने स्पेसिफिक एग्जांपल दिया. धीरे धीरे आयरलैंड जहाँ पे बहुत ज्यादा रेनी और बहुत ज्यादा मॉइस्चर होता था लैंड में, वो तो बिल्कुल ही डिपेंडेंट हो गए पोटैटो के ऊपर, थिंकिंग दैट दिस इज द स्टेपल फूड नाउ. So basically they left out anything, but they didn't know that इसमें फंगस लग जाएगा और फंगस की वजह से बहुत सारे लोग मरे. तो वो क्या कहना चाह रहा है कि भाई किसी प्लांट को अपनी कंट्री में लाने से पहले उसकी लैंड और जो है वो सूटेबल होना चाहिए उसके, अदरवाइज वो पता नहीं क्या इफेक्ट्स ला देगा. डिपेंडिंग ऑन होमोजेनस फूड अब यार इज नॉट डिजायरेबल. अगर उस टाइम पे पोटैटो की बजाय अगर वो नॉर्मल अपने फूड पे डिपेंडेंट रहे होते तो शायद ये फेमाइन और ये इतने सारे लोग मरते नहीं वहां पे. आप उसकी बात सुन समझ रहे हो? उसने लास्ट सेंटेंस में क्या बोला है कि the resulting famine killed and or displaced millions. इसका मतलब क्या हुआ कि अगर उन्होंने पोटैटो को स्टेपल फूड ना बनाया होता, if they had other options for their staple crops, then this would not had happened. तो उसका consequence बता रहा है वो कि उसकी वजह से हुआ क्या है फिर वहां पे. समझ रहे हो? 24 का बी है यार, देखते हैं. So I will discuss all the questions later on. ठीक है. Okay, coming to second passage. चलिए वाला करते हैं एक बार. India is at once among the fastest growing global economies and home to the largest number of malnourished children in the world. There are regions where malnutrition is not the exception but the norm. And across the country, malnutrition is the cause of death for roughly half the 1.3 million children who die before their 5th birthday each year. Even those children who survive suffer permanently from the damage that has already been done to their bodies and minds from not getting enough of the right foods and nutrients. Around 44 million children under 5 are stunted. That makes it harder for them to learn in school and subsequently earn a living as adults. Their lifetime earnings potential is almost a quarter less than that of their healthy peers. So basically they're talking about the problems and the consequences of malnutrition in India. What are the most logical and rational implications of the passage? Okay, let's read the options. India's public distribution system should be monitored by the union government. Okay, girls should be encouraged to delay marriage and first pregnancy. Okay, mothers should be encouraged to breastfeed their children immediately after birth. The supply of safe drinking water and proper sanitation facilities to all should be ensured. And authorities should ensure the vaccination as prescribed. So guys, basically they started, India is once among the fastest growing global economies and home to the largest number of malnourished children in the world. This is the contradiction he's trying to put forward, that India is among the fastest growing economies. So India is among the fastest growing economies, but at the same time and also home to the largest number of malnourished children in the world. There are regions where malnutrition is not the exception but the norm. And across the country, malnutrition is the cause for death for roughly half the 1.3 million children who die before the age of their fifth year. Okay, so basically half of the deaths, the responsible cause for half of the deaths of children is malnutrition in India. Right? Even those children who survive suffer permanently from not getting enough nutrients and everything. And most of them are stunted. 44 million children are under 5 are stunted. That makes it harder for them to earn, to learn in school, and makes it harder and subsequently earn a living as adults. Their lifetime earning potential is almost a quarter less than that of their healthy peers. So guys, what should be the logical implication here? Yes guys. Girls should be encouraged to delay marriage in first pregnancy. Mothers should be encouraged to breastfeed their children. The supply of safe drinking water and proper sanitation facilities to all should be ensured. Authorities should ensure the vaccination as prescribed. Or India's public distribution system should be monitored by the union government. Yes guys, which of these do you think is the most rational and practical implication or implications the malnutrition or the problem this has? Now, this has nothing to do with girls. I think I can eliminate that. This had nothing to do with mothers. I think we can eliminate that. Now, if I eliminate option number 2 and 3, this is eliminated, this is eliminated, this is eliminated. So the correct option is option number C. Very good guys. Chalo. Now this was a passage about a pulse, about dal ke baare mein tha, the pulse variety. Pusa Arhar 16 has the potential to be grown in the paddy growing regions of Punjab, Haryana, Uttar Pradesh, and eventually in all of India. Its yield, about 2000 kg per hectare, will be significantly greater than those of its existing varieties, and because its size will be uniform. And it will be amenable to mechanical harvesting, an attractive feature for farmers in northern India who currently use this technology for paddy. So basically they're talking about that another variety of pulse. Now it will be very good because its size will be uniform, it will be amenable to mechanical harvesting, and an attractive feature for farmers who use this for paddy. Most important, Arhar straw, unlike paddy straw, is green and can be plowed back into the soil. In paddy straw, the problem is the high silica content, which does not allow for easy decomposition. In case of Arhar, the farmer, even after combine harvesting, just needs to run a rotavator to cut the leftover straw into pieces, which can be plowed back and will decompose very fast. So basically he's talking about that it can also be used again for improvement of soil quality. All this is difficult with leftover paddy stalks that cannot be easily salvaged or plowed back. Farmers therefore choose the easiest option of simply burning it. So basically they're talking about another option for farmers to use this pulse Arhar 16, which has greater output. It is good for the farm, it is easy for the farmers to cultivate, and it can be used again to improve the quality of the soil. So that was the main idea of the passage. The most rational inference that can be made from this passage, guys: farmers' income will be higher with pulse cultivation than with paddy cultivation. Pulse cultivation causes less pollution as compared to paddy cultivation. Pulse straw can be used to improve soil quality. In the context of the northern Indian agriculture, paddy straw has no usefulness. I think I can eliminate that clearly, because you cannot say it has no usefulness. Mechanized agriculture is the main cause for stubble burning. That's also not true. So out of 1, 2 and 3, let's see guys, were there any options given? हाँ, मैं वही देख रहा था. यहाँ पे options कोई नहीं given, तो हमने कौन सा ऑप्शन एलिमिनेट कर दिया? ऑप्शन नंबर 3, सॉरी ऑप्शन नंबर 4 एंड ऑप्शन नंबर 5. तो अगर मैं 4 और 5 ऑप्शन को एलिमिनेट करता हूँ, मेरे कौन सा ऑप्शन एलिमिनेट हो जाते हैं गाइस? देखना, दिस इज लॉजिकल एलिमिनेशन. 4 यहाँ से निकल गया, 4 और 5 यहाँ से निकल गया, 5 यहाँ से निकल गया. अपने करेक्ट ऑप्शन क्या बचे? 2 and 3 only. So the correct option was option number C. Yes guys, 2 and 3. Pulse cultivation causes less pollution as compared to paddy cultivation. Second, pulse straw can be used to improve soil quality. Farmers' income will be higher with pulse cultivation than ये कहीं पे पैसेज में गिवन नहीं है गाइस. देखना एक बार, अगर मैं बात करता हूँ इस पैसेज की, इसमें ये कहीं नहीं दिया होता. पल्स वैरायटी हैज potential to be grown in paddy growing region of Punjab, Haryana, Uttar Pradesh and eventually in all of India. Its yield will be significantly greater than those of existing varieties. Now existing varieties of pulses, not it will be more than rice. So the correct option is option number, yes guys, option number C is the correct answer here. Okay. Now let's read the fourth passage. In India, authorities have always looked to store the maximum amount of water in reservoirs during the monsoon season, which is then used for irrigation and generation of electricity during the summer months. It is an internationally accepted practice that the water level of a reservoir should be kept below a certain level before the onset of monsoon season. This is so that when monsoon rains come, there is space to store the excess rainwater and also so that water can be released in a regulated manner. But, now this was the important part here, but the authorities store the maximum amount of water in reservoirs even before the close of the monsoon, only to ensure greater electricity generation and irrigation. Right? Now this was the important part. What this here was, in India, first of all they are talking about authorities always look to store maximum amount of water in reservoirs during the monsoon season, which is then used for irrigation and generation of electricity during the summer months. It is an internationally, now they talk, this is the second part, internationally accepted practice that water level of a reservoir should be kept below a certain level, so that when monsoon comes, they can keep the water and use it for whatever purposes, right? But the authorities store maximum amount of water in reservoirs even before the close of the monsoon, only to ensure greater electricity generation and irrigation. Okay. Now, let's read the question, guys. With reference to the passage, the following assumptions have been made. High risks involved in holding maximum water in reservoirs are due to our over-dependence on hydropower projects. Storage capacity of dams should not be fully used before or during monsoon season. Role of the dams in flood control is underestimated in India. Yes, guys. Now this was a tricky one. What would be the answer? Yes, guys. अटेम्प्ट नहीं इतने अटेम्प्ट नहीं लगते यार, अटेम्प्ट नहीं लगते ज़्यादा. ठीक है, थोड़ा सा प्रैक्टिस करो, एलिमिनेशन मेथड सीखो, इट बिकम्स वेरी सिंपल टू क्रैक दिस. ठीक है. इस गाइस, तो क्या होना चाहिए इसका आंसर? हाई रिस्क इन्वॉल्व्ड इन होल्डिंग मैक्सिमम वाटर रिजर्वॉयर्स आर ड्यू टू आवर ओवर डिपेंडेंस ऑन हाइड्रो पावर प्रोजेक्ट्स. Storage capacity of dams should not be fully used before or during the monsoon season. The role of dams in flood control is underestimated in India. Yes, guys. Due to our over dependence on hydropower projects, it is nowhere given in the passage, guys. This is nowhere mentioned that we are over dependent on hydropower projects. Now, role of dams in flood control is underestimated in India. It is not underestimated; it is overestimated because they always keep the reservoirs full. But the logical answer was storage capacity of dams should not be fully used before or during monsoon season. So the correct option was option number B. Very good, guys. Chal. Moving on. Economic liberalization in India was shaped largely by the economic problems of the government, then by economic priorities of the people or by the long-term development objective. Now this is the important line here, guys, of this passage. Economic liberalization in India was shaped largely by the economic problems of the government, then by the economic priorities of the people or by the long-term development objectives. Thus there were limitations in conception and design. So it was not very well designed or it was not very well executed, which have been subsequently validated by experience. Jobless growth, persistent poverty and rising inequality. Now these are the consequences of this. Jobless growth, persistent poverty, rising inequality have mounted as problems since economic liberalization began. And all these years later, 4 quiet crises confront the economy. Number 1, agriculture, infrastructure, industrialization and education as constraints on the country's future prospects. These problems must be resolved if economic growth has to be sustained and transformed into meaningful development. So this was a short but very powerful paragraph which had meaning in every word, every sentence of this. So what is the logical inference that can be made from the passage? Okay, so 1, 2, how many? Okay, there are only 2 assumptions made here. Let's read the assumption. It's essential to rethink and redefine the economic role of the state in the quest for development. And second, India has not made effective implementation of its policies in social sectors, nor made sufficient investments in them. Yes, guys. That's question number 45. What should be the answer, guys? Yes. Anyone? Both? दोनों लग रहे हैं हमें? It is essential to rethink and redefine the economic role of the state in the quest for development. देखो ये तो ठीक है ही guys. That's absolutely correct. ये तो हम पैसे से समझ पा रहे हैं. Second option देखना था आपने. India has not made effective implementation of its policies in social sectors, nor made sufficient investments in them. So guys, this was about economic growth. If you read the passage, economic liberalization was shaped by economic problems of the government, not by economic priorities of the people, not long-term development. There were limitations in consumption which have been subsequently validated by experience. Jobless growth, persistent poverty, rising inequality have mounted as problems since economic liberalization began. And all these years later, 4 quiet crises confront the economy, agriculture, infrastructure, industrialization, education as constraint of the country's future prospects. These problems must be resolved if economic growth has to be sustained and transformed into meaningful development. Yes, so I think अब हम आ जाते हैं. ये जो 4 चीजें थी, ये आ गई आपकी social sectors में. So India has not made effective implementation of its policies in social sectors, nor made sufficient investments in them. So basically, both the options were correct. So the correct option was, guys, option number C. Okay? Very well done, guys. What? Neither 1 nor 2. First तो बहुत clear है यार. Yes, it's C. Very good, guys. And there was another question based on this. With reference to the passage, the following assumptions have been made. India's economy needs to be greatly integrated with global economy so as to create large number of jobs and to sustain its growth momentum. Or economic liberalization would cause large economic growth which would reduce poverty and create sufficient employment in the long run. Economic liberalization would cause large economic growth which would reduce poverty and create sufficient employment in the long run. Yes guys, इसका क्या आंसर लग रहा है? Yes, 46 का guys, फटाफट बता दो. नहीं 45 में दोनों ठीक थे. इसमें guys देखो, ना तो उसने India's economy needs to be greatly integrated with global economy, ना इसकी कहीं बात की है उसने, ठीक है? उसने तो उसकी पॉलिसीज को रीथिंक करने की बात की है कि प्रॉब्लम्स को डील करना है तो ये पॉलिसीज को दोबारा ठीक करना पड़ेगा एंड ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन हैज टू बी मीनिंगफुल. दूसरा मैं सेकंड को भी एलिमिनेट यहाँ करूंगा. क्यों? क्योंकि देखना उसने यहाँ क्या कहा था. ये देखो, सिंस द बिगैन ऑफ लिबरलाइजेशन. यस, ये देखो ध्यान से. ऑल दीज इयर्स लेटर 4 quiet crises confront the economy, agriculture, infrastructure, industrialization and education as constraints on the country's future prospects. ठीक है? और इसने क्या बोला? Jobless growth, persistent poverty, rising inequality have mounted as problems since economic liberalization began. और यहाँ पे क्या कर रहा है? Economic liberalization would cause large economic growth which would reduce poverty and create sufficient ये sufficient employment in the long run. ये हुआ नहीं है, ये उसका contradictory हो गया है यहाँ पे. तो I think यहाँ पे दोनों ही जो assumptions हैं वो गलत हो जाती हैं. So the correct option was option number D, neither 1 nor 2. So the correct option was option number D, guys. चलो, moving on, guys. That's the next batch for the passage. Now, it was about bank credit, right? Bank credit to industrial sector has started shrinking. Its decline has been a serious concern as credit growth is essential to revive investment. The problem's origins lie in the incomplete reforms of the last 25 years. ये इसकी important line थी. The problem's origins lie in the incomplete reforms of the last 25 years. An institutional change that should have followed the 1991 reforms should have been setting up of a resolution corporation for banks. In a market economy with booms and busts, banks should be allowed to set up and to fail. Today we cannot shut down banks because there is no proper system to shut them down. Weak, loss-making banks continue to need more capital. So basically he is talking about keeping an open market for banks, right? So guys, what is the logical inference that can be made? Let's read the options. Indian banking system is not able to help the country in its economic growth. Economic reforms that started in 1991 have not helped in improving the economy to expected levels. India lacks the institutional mechanism to deal with the failure of banks, and encouraging the foreign investments in our industrial sector is good alternative to the sector's dependence on banks for credit. Yes guys, क्या आंसर मार्क किया आपने बताओगे? 61 का. Very well done. So it was option number C. India lacks the institutional mechanism to deal with the failure of banks. That is the logical inference that can be made from the passage. Very well done guys. चलो अब इसमें एक और पैसेज था. Second passage देखते हैं. India has tremendous potential for solar energy. We all realize that we have to stop burning fossil fuels to meet our energy needs. But certain renewable resources are still going through their cost curves and learning curves to get the required amount of output. The Indian government has strongly committed to its target of reducing emission by 33% by 2030, and towards this it has initiated a strong push towards a gas-based economy and has also invested heavily in renewable energy. However, business houses are wary of investing too heavily in renewable energy at a time when the technology is not yet ready. So people are not accepting, businesses are not accepting, but government has tried to push it because it is still costly and the cost curves and learning curves are still, they're not up to the mark. So let's read the options guys. Question number, the rational inference. Okay, let's read the options. India's commitment to reduce emissions by 33% is unlikely to be achieved. India should import gas rather than invest in renewable resources. Getting renewable resources to market too soon may be costly, or India should put in more efforts in the exploration of natural gas. Yes guys, question number 62, क्या आंसर है? Very good guys, the correct option is getting, guys, inference. We had to find the logical inference. Remember, inference is the logical information, the factual information that is given in the passage. Now I can eliminate this. I can eliminate should import in gas rather than invest in renewable resources. ये भी इसका inference नहीं है. The logical inference was option number C. Getting renewable resources to market too soon may be costly. Let them reach their maximum output and minimum cost input. That is the right time to introduce it in the market. So the correct was option number C. Very well done guys. And question number 63. There was another question. The assumptions have been made. Governments often provide inefficient and costly subsidies for technology that may not be ready in the near future. Or India's commitment of reducing emission by 33% by 2030 shall be on the basis of gas-based economy. Yes guys. Question number 63. What should be the answer? Quickly guys, question number 63. Very well done guys. The correct answer is India governments often provide. We're talking about governments often provide inefficient and costly subsidies for technologies that may not be ready in the near future. That's nowhere given. India's commitment of reducing 2030 shall be based on gas-based economy. We cannot be a gas-based economy. Gas is also a fossil fuel. It's a fuel basically, right? So we should switch to renewable. Gas cannot be renewed. So basically both the assumptions were wrong. So the correct option was option number D. Very well done guys. Nope, it was option number D. Chalo, moving on guys. Now, genome editing. Yes, it was about editing of the crops, in particular this. So genome editing is different from genome modification. Genome editing typically involves finding the part of a plant genome that could be changed to render it less vulnerable to disease or resistant to certain herbicides or to increase yields. Researchers use molecular scissors to dissect the genome and repair it, which is a process that occurs naturally when plants are under attack from diseases and can throw up new mutations that enable the plant to survive future attacks. Now, this evolutionary process can effectively be speeded up now that it is possible to examine plant genomes in detail in laboratories and create mechanisms through which the relevant genes can be altered very precisely, right? So, the question based on this was, with reference to the upper passage, the following assumptions have been made. The assumptions, let's read the options. Genome editing does not require the transfer of genes from one plant to another, or through genome editing, the chosen genes can be altered precisely in a manner akin to the natural process that helps plants to adapt to the environmental factors. Yes guys, what would be the answer for this? Question number 64. Very well done guys. So the correct option, both the options were correct. No. Option 1 was wrong. The only correct option was option number B. Very well done guys. So, yes, this is contradictory to the statement and this is where it makes logical sense. So the correct option was, through genome editing, the chosen genes can be altered precisely in a manner akin to the natural processes that helps plants to adapt to environmental factors. Right. Alright guys. Next passage, many people understand the connection between solid waste management and health in terms of the consequences of unattended heaps of dry garbage which become home for flies and other vermin. However, there is another aspect that is not well understood, that is what happens when unscientific solid waste management combines with poor drainage and dumping of untreated sewage into drains which are meant to carry storm water during rains. The result is choked drains which are full of stagnant water breeding mosquitoes, resulting in the spread of waterborne diseases. So what is the critical message of the passage guys? In India, the drainage networks are not separate for sewage and storm water. Urban local bodies do not have enough resources and legislative authority to deal with the problems of waste management. Solid waste management should be integrated with the maintenance of drainage and sewage networks, and bad management of solid waste and sewage systems by our municipalities is the reason for drinking water shortages in our cities. Yes guys, what would be the answer for this? Question number 65. Yes guys, quickly, question number 65. Very well done guys. Solid waste management should be integrated. You know, people normally think that sewage system, that is a different way of management, and dealing with solid waste is a different thing, but they actually, the problems for both are combined, so they have to be integrated with those measures. So that was the best message of the passage which I could read. The solid waste management should be integrated with the maintenance of drainage and sewage network. So if the solid management is done, then there would be no blockage and nothing would be problematic. So the correct answer was option number C. Very well done guys. And the last passage for this paper guys. In part 3 of the Constitution, which assures people certain fundamental rights, Article 25 proclaims that all persons are equally entitled to freedom of conscience and the right freely to profess, practice and propagate religion. What people fail to notice is that this proclamation is prefixed with the words subject to public order, morality, health and to other provisions of this part, which set conditions precedent for the legal protection of religious practices of any community. The closing words of this prefatory rider in Article 25 virtually constitute a subordination clause placing other fundamental rights mentioned in Part 3 over and above the right to religious freedom. Among those other fundamental rights is the right to equality before law and equal protection of laws, assured at the outset and elaborated in later articles to mean inter alia that the state shall not deny equal protection of laws to any person or group of persons on the basis of religion alone. So this was talking about that both these laws should not coincide, that freedom to speak, freedom to profess religion, liberty, that should not hamper any other person's right of living or freedom or whatever it is. So that's the passage about. So what is the logical inference from the passage? State shall not interfere with the religious affairs of the citizens. Religious freedom under the Constitution is open to state intervention. Religious freedom of the citizens is not covered under fundamental rights, or religious practices of any community are immune to state laws. Yes guys, what is the answer for question number 66? क्या मार्क किया आपने? पहले ही आंसर दे दिए हैं. Very good guys. What was the answer here? Yes guys, quickly. Very well done. Religious freedom under the Constitution is open to state intervention. Yes, state can intervene. So the correct option was option number B. Very good guys. Ashutosh, this is a tentative answer key. Obviously, I'm not saying that what I have given you as an answer key is the final answer key. I cannot 100% give you that, but this is the analysis that I have made. Guys, this is what from my experience I have made this analysis, that this is the passage and that's what they are asking. I cannot guarantee you 100% that this answer key is correct, but yes, 90 let's say 95%, 98%, 99% this answer key would be correct. There may be a 1% or 2% error. There could be that. We'll have to wait for that. But yes, in the meantime, what I have analyzed since yesterday, that this is the answer, the correct answer of any passage that they were looking for. Alright guys, so yes guys, now I hope कितने मैच हुए आपके, अब कितने ठीक हुए यार बताओ जरा. आउट ऑफ हाउ मेनी क्वेश्चन? 25 क्वेश्चंस जो आपने आंसर की मार्क की है, जो आपने पेपर में मार्क की है और जो मैंने बताई है, एक बार उसके अकॉर्डिंग एक बार मैच करके मुझे बताओ आउट ऑफ दीज 25 क्वेश्चंस आपके कितने ठीक हो रहे हैं, कितने गलत हो रहे हैं. मैं इंग्लिश की बात कर रहा हूँ सर, ठीक है. म्युनिसिपैलिटीज वाला क्वेश्चन नंबर बताओ यार. एम कौन सा वाला बता रहे थे? क्वेश्चन नंबर अगर आप बता सकते हो तो विल बी बेटर. 21 out of 25. That's very well done यार. Congratulations. Good job. Yes guys, everybody tell me what's your score. यार वाहिगुरु वाहिगुरु जी, हमने दिमाग खराब नहीं, हम तो आपके हेल्प करने के लिए आए यार. ठीक है, देखो रिजल्ट तो वही रहना है, ठीक है, वो तो नहीं चेंज होएगा अभी. सो अभी टेंशन मत लो उस चीज़ की. हम तो सिर्फ आपको एक अपना सपोर्ट सिस्टम देने आए कि अगर आपने ऐसे किया है तो आपको ये बेनिफिट्स इसमें मिल सकते हैं और ये चीज़ें आपको देखने को मिल सकते हैं इसमें. ठीक है. यस गाइस, सो क्विकली टेल मी कि कितने ठीक हो रहे हैं, कितने गलत हो रहे हैं. यस गाइस, म्युनिसिपैलिटीज वाला मैं एक बार इसमें देखता हूँ गाइस. कौन सा वाला कह रहे थे आप? तो ये वाला ये स्टेटमेंट पूरी तो देखो ना यार, अनलेस का मतलब क्या होता है, म्युनिसिपैलिटी वाला एम देखो एक बार, आर अर्बन बॉडीज कैनॉट पॉसिबली एंश्योर sustainable delivery of water in our cities unless financing mechanisms are put in place. That means unless financing is there, they cannot provide water to you unless financing is not there, right? So unless it's there, so you cannot, municipalities cannot provide you water. Water delivery requires heavy investment, collecting it from a natural source, treating it, making it potable, laying a distribution of pipes and this and this and this investment, and sewers can carry the waste and is discharged back into natural water bodies. If our cities were rich enough to meet the entire cost, water could be delivered free, but they are not. So if our cities were rich enough to take on the cost of all this infrastructure, then water would be supplied free. But what they are actually doing is they are not taking the money for the infrastructure. What governments are doing, they are creating the infrastructure and then they are charging for water. So basically that was the outlay of the whole idea of the. ध्यान से पढ़ो, उसने क्या लिखा, unless financing mechanisms were in place. ठीक है, तो फाइनेंसिंग कहाँ से आती है, फाइनेंसिंग लेके और फिर वो उसको बना के और फिर लोगों से वो पैसे कलेक्ट करते हैं, तो फ्री में पानी इसलिए नहीं दे पाते वो ये चीज़. ठीक है, yes guys. डिप्रेस मत रहो यार. अच्छा, ऑप्शन में हाँ, तो वो यही तो बोल रहा है, मस्ट रिकवर का मतलब क्या है, जब हमारी सिटीज अमीर नहीं है, हम वो पूरे जो इसका जो इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर है उसका हम कॉस्ट मैनेज नहीं कर सकते, तो उसने क्या बोला है, इसका मतलब क्या निकलता है कि भाई पैसे लेने तो पड़ेंगे ना, और पैसे कहाँ से लेने पड़ेंगे, वो कस्टमर से लेने पड़ेंगे. अगर हमारी सिटी इतनी रिच होती कि हम पूरे इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर का, मान लो एक सिटी बना रहे हैं कोई, ठीक है, और वो लोगों को बोलते हैं भाई आप हमें पैसे दो पहले सारे मिलकर और फिर हम आपके लिए पानी का इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर बनाएंगे. ठीक है, अगर इतनी अमीर हमारे सिटीज होती तो वो कर देते, लेकिन प्रॉब्लम क्या है, इतनी अमीर सिटीज है नहीं, वो ग्रो करती हैं उसके साथ, तो वो क्या करते हैं, पहले वो फाइनेंसिंग लेके उसको बना के फिर वो पैसे कलेक्ट कहाँ से करते हैं, यूजर्स से. सो उसके बिना वो काम चल नहीं सकता, बिकॉज आवर सिटीज आर नॉट वेरी रिच. So that's why they have to, charge money for that. So that is the outlay of this. Okay. CSAT should be removed. Guys, that's why I always emphasize to my students, guys, please do not take CSAT paper very lightly. And students always make this mistake every year. That's why I have been telling it on my YouTube sessions on civil staff that do not take this paper as lightly as you think. People just think that we only have to score 66 marks. But scoring those 66 marks, that's a different story altogether. So guys, please, I would suggest start preparing from now on. This is not the end of anything. I'm telling you this. Guys, this is not the end. Life is not ending here. There will be other chances, other opportunities. So start preparing for them and do not take this paper as lightly as you, from a natural resource, treating it to make it potable and laying a distribution network of pipes for delivery to the users. It also requires investments in sewerage infrastructure and sewage treatment plants so that the sewer can carry the wastewater to these plants to ensure that no untreated sewage is discharged back into natural water bodies. If our cities work, ये सारा काम जो बोल रहा है ये सिंपल काम नहीं है ना, कि पानी सिर्फ नदी से लिया और घर में पहुंचा दिया, सिर्फ यही नहीं है, उसमें और बहुत सारी चीजें हैं. और यही वो ऑप्शन में बोल रहा है कि सस्टेनेबल डिलीवरी ऑफ वाटर इन सिटीज मींस मच मोर देन सप्लाइंग वाटर टू हाउसहोल्ड्स. सिर्फ सप्लाई करना नहीं है, उसमें और बहुत सारे फैक्टर्स आ जाते हैं. ठीक है, I know Amit, you have my empathy, Amit, but please start preparing for this, guys. Whoever watches this video, who are live now, or maybe whoever is watching at the later point of time, please start preparing for these exams. They're there for some reason. Why is it called CSAT? It's an aptitude test. This is basically a test of your rational and your reading habit, comprehension habit, comprehension ability. So guys, please take it seriously and please start preparing. But guys, just keep your fingers crossed. Keep your fingers crossed. ठीक है, कि भगवान चाहे अब सबका हो, एंड मुझे पता भी है बहुत सारे स्टूडेंट्स का हो भी जाएगा, एंड आई एम रियली हैप्पी फॉर दोस्त जो नहीं हो पाया. कोई बात नहीं गाइस, डोंट बी डीमोरलाइज्ड. ये होता है यार, ठीक है, इट हैपेंस. दिस इज अ लर्निंग कर्व that you need to understand that this is where we lack and this is where we need to prepare. So guys, having said this, let's wrap up the session. It was so good to have all of you here. If you still have any doubts, you can write us an email or you can give us a call. Let's wrap it up. Thank you so much for joining in the session, and I hope आप सबका पेपर क्लियर हो, और I really wish you all the very best.